So for those of you that have been following my podcast, you'll notice that I'm adding video. Well, I'm giving it a try today. We'll see how it goes. So for those of you that are visual, you get to see my face while I talk. And for those of you that just want to hear my voice, you're more than welcome to just continue to hear my voice. So as always, these podcasts are off the cuff, and so I'm pulling in whatever's coming to me. So yesterday I was in meditation, and I always ask my oversoul, my higher self, like, is there any message that you would like to impart to me today? And all I heard yesterday morning was just relax, relax, the word relax. And I understood that what that meant is that when we let go, when we relax, we're actually in far greater control than when we try to make things happen. So what I want to talk about today is, what do I mean by that? And how when we really are living our lives through the perspective and in relationship with the soul, how there's a greater fluidity, there's a greater sense of control because we're in partnership and in alignment and listening to that which is actually always guiding us. Sometimes we just get a little bit in the way. So let's see where it takes us. Let's dive in. This is Corinne Bloom, and you're listening to Raw Conversations. So, I'm just going to tune in for a moment. You might find that I do a lot of this with my eyes closed. Where we've grown in a world, we've been made to believe, we've been taught, we've been indoctrinated, whatever word you want to use. We've been told that we need to make everything happen, and that actually in a way we're very out of control, like this is all just chaos, right? And when we're kind of disconnected from the source of who we are, when that truth has been hidden, and we believe that everything is random and chaotic, what happens is fear comes in. And when fear comes in, what do? We try to control. We get really tense. It becomes very tiring and stressful and anything but relaxed when we feel like I have to make things happen. I have to control the way things happen. When I feel out of control, I need to grasp towards some kind of control so that I can make life easier or that I can feel safer. But all of it is run with this undercurrent of fear that says, you're on your own. You're alone, right? There's nothing that's guiding you or supporting you unless it's just the people in your life or, hopefully the quote unquote leaders that are not so much leaders. But there is when there's that undertone of fear and there's nothing that you are divinely connected to, most especially yourself, then there's going to be this reaching outwardly to grasp for some sense of control. And I say sense of control because whenever we leave home, which is leaving our inner selves, our inner being, and most especially our true being, it's a sense of control. It's a sense of safety. It's not that people or things outside of us can't give us that feeling of safety and of calm and of comfort. But ultimately, if we're not at home within ourselves, then nothing is going to fully, truly, truly, truly give us that feeling of like, I'm okay. I'm taken care of, right? So it's my belief that we have been so pulled away from nature and our inner nature and the source of who we truly are. I think a lot has been kept hidden from us of who we truly are, where we come from, why we're here, all of these things. So why am I talking so much about the soul? My work is really moving into much more directly speaking to the soul because that's what we're remembering right now. This is a time of great remembrance. And, my work for the last 15 years and my personal journey for the last 20 something years, 20 plus years, has been the authentic self. Like, who am I without the identity of? You know, who truly am I? Who is the essence of who I am? And now, as we're moving through such evolutionary times, and I understand that for some that might be really exciting, and for others that might be really scary and confusing and tumultuous and kind of like, what the hell is going on with my reality right now? Because reality is bending, it's stretching. You know, everything that we've known up until this point is kind of crumbling and showing, revealing itself also, right? Because the shadow, which has always been there, and it's been there for thousands of years, some say the last 6,000 years, some say even longer, it's finally being revealed. You know, this is the great reveal. But in the dissolution of what no longer serves us, their fear can arise, because it's like, oh, everything that I thought was real and true, and this reality that I thought I existed in, it's like the Truman Show. You know, when he finally realizes, like, this isn't real life. This isn't reality. This is all like a game. This is all staged. This is a film. This is a movie. And then he goes up and he doesn't he like peel back the sky or something? He goes to the steps at the very end of the set, you could say. And I think we're in this kind of place right now where we're metaphorically and spiritually, I would say, going to peel back the sky and going, what's actually really there, and who really truly are we? So how does this tie into this theme of relax? Because when we come from that place where we've been pulled away from our source, from inner source, from nature, you know, this planet is also cosmic, right? We tend to want to kind of spiritually ascend, right? And go somewhere into the stars, into the galactic, which is amazing. But also the earth is such a beautiful, mysterious, cosmic source for us. So right now, it's not just about ascending into our higher spiritual self and to those dimensions, but it's actually firstly rooting ourselves deeply where we are, and understanding that in order to ascend, we have to descend. We have to put in roots into the darkened soil before we can grow and blossom, right? So when we think of this right now, it might just be a concept of relax, let go. What we're doing is just, if you're watching, it's like we physically fall back into our bodies, like into our spine holding us. When we're in fear, when we're in disconnect and we're out of alignment with our higher selves, there's this kind of, I'm reaching, remember what I said, I'm reaching towards the external to try and grasp for some kind of help, support, guidance, direction, answer. Tell me what to do. Tell me what I should do with my life. What is the right decision? You decide for me. You be the authority for me. But when we actually sit back into our, what I'm going to call our soul self, which is remembering who we truly are, which is this infinite, immortal essence, spirit, soul, that is a part of all that is consciousness, that is love, that is creation itself, we get to exhale. Because what we recognize in those moments is that we are held in this cosmic net. And I say that in the most beautiful way, like net, which is like a network of everything interconnected. It makes me think of fungi. There's a word for it. Oh, I can't think of it right now. It starts with an M, and I'm not going to remember it because it's a long word. But how their whole system, the root system, is the same with trees, is all interconnected, right? It's all interconnected, and that's what we are as beings, as souls, is we're part of this greater network of consciousness. And so when we actually relax and drop into who we truly are, we are immediately connected. We always have been. It's just that we forget. And we've been made to forget, because it's like, no, you're on your own. You're separate from all things. You're separate from earth. You're separate from God, source, universe, creator of all that is. You don't have a soul. All of these things make us feel really lost, and they pull us away from our inner home, and therefore our inner knowing, and therefore our inner comfort that gets to just relax and be who we are. Right? So it's no wonder that so many people are stressed and anxious and afraid, and the fear of death is so immense because we think, oh, we're just this human mortal self, and when this life is done, boop, that's it, we disappear, right? And whether you believe that or you don't believe that, I don't know, I guess the invitation would be to be curious about, well, what is beyond this? I remember as a child that I used to sit there in the dark and I would go, okay, what's beyond that? What's beyond the darkness? And what's beyond that? What's beyond that furthest point of the darkness? Really what was happening is I was entering the void. And I came into this life, I think, with a certain kind of remembrance. And I'm not saying that to toot my own horn. It was just, I remember my birth. I remember what I was getting into. I have a lot of very visceral memories being a baby and being a small child, and the conversations that I would have with the universe, you could say. So this time of great remembrance is coming into the true reality, coming out of the matrix and coming into the true reality. When we relax and we can trust, I have my own most incredible inner guidance system, which is my soul, higher self. It is guiding me. We actually have a greater sense of control in those moments because our oversoul, which has a much more far-reaching view on life and reality, can actually guide us and give us a sense of, oh, I know which direction I'm going in. I know that whatever comes into my life and whatever experience is coming in is happening for me and not to me. And I'm being guided, right? I'm being led there. I'm being redirected if I fall a little bit off course. That gives us a greater sense of quote unquote control, because what's happening is we feel held and supported. That's what makes us feel like we're in control. It's like, oh, I'm not alone in my experience. I'm guided, I'm held, I'm loved, I'm taken care of, I'm safe. The illusion of control when we're not sitting in the seat of our soul is it's a grasp for control. I'm going to control and try to make happen, and when I can't make life happen the way that I want it to happen, or when there's a natural disaster and I have zero control over anything, I feel completely out of control and scared, and the fear of death comes in. Right? The fear of my mortality comes in, and the fear of the end comes in. And it's really tiring and stressful. There's a great analogy that I want to use. I think it was R.J. Spina, but please forgive me if I got that one wrong. The analogy that he used is when we get into our car, we don't think that we're the car, right? We're the driver of that car. That's exactly what our relationship is between our soul and our human self. The soul is the driver. The human self is the car. It is providing us the vehicle through which our soul gets to have this experience of being human on this planet, having a wide range of experiences, taking us to all sorts of places, adventures, some tumultuous, some blissful. But the soul doesn't go, I am the car. I am the body, right? I am the human. Just like we don't get in the car and go, "Oh, I'm the car. I'm the car now." We go, "No, I'm Corinne. I'm driving the car. The car's taking me places, but I'm not the car." And I think once we grasp this idea that we are not the human, even though it feels so real and visceral, right? But to have this, the analogy I've always used is that the essence of who you are, your soul, is the canvas. What you paint on that canvas, the colors, the pictures, the images, that is who you are as a personality. They reflect the experiences that you have of being human. You can paint over it, you can scratch over it, you can erase it, you can do all sorts of things, but the canvas is always there. And the canvas is who you truly are, your spirit, your soul. So in this time of remembrance, when we have this relationship to ourselves and to our life, where we recognize I'm not just this flesh, right? This is the vehicle. It helps us to come into that place of relaxation, not grasping for control, but knowing that we are guided and taken care of and supported along the way. And it gives us just a very different perspective on life. There is a greater sense of, I'm not going to take that personal. I'm not going to get pulled and thwarted into that drama. I recognize that it's a game. I recognize that it's a tool for growth. And here's the thing. This is where our free will comes in. We could say that our soul carries us through what is destined for us. But where we as a human have free will is we get to choose. Do I want to partake in the game? Do I want to partake in the drama? Do I even want to partake in my own inner drama? Which is why it's really important to get to know what are your identities, your limiting beliefs, your triggers, your wounds, all of the things that make you a beautifully messy human. Get to know those things. Because once you get to know them, you're not entrenched in them. You're not I am this body. I am the car, right? You all of a sudden have enough space and perspective to go, oh, the car is just the vehicle. Right? Then the choice comes through. So, on a practical level, as the trigger arises, I get to choose. Do I go with that trigger and do I go into the drama that trigger takes me into? Or can I make the choice of, you know what? I know what to do to take care of myself. I know how to come back to love within myself. It's not about spiritually bypassing or neglecting or ignoring or pushing away or suppressing. None of that stuff. Everything is about inclusion. Everything is about embracement. But that's the alchemy. That's where we are the alchemists, that you can alchemize any experience through your love and your presence and your focus and attention, right? And it has to come from heart. Things, we don't get rid of things. We don't fix or change things. We alchemize them through accepting, embracing, and loving them, right? But the choice comes in, how do I want to respond to something rather than react to something? So that's on the micro. That's in our little big experience. But then think about it when you look at the world stage. And especially when you look at the 3D world stage, which is chaotic, and it keeps us in that same loop. You could say it even keeps us in that same kind of incarnate loop where we come in and we repeat the same stories, and history repeats itself, and the cycles. I was listening to, I think his name is Matt Lacroix, was speaking with Emilio Ortiz on the Just Tap In podcast. And they were talking about how time isn't linear, right? In the third dimension, we see it as linear. We see it as this line from I'm born, I live my life, and then I die, right? Whereas actually time, which is an illusion, but if we were to give it a shape, let's say, it would be cyclical. That it constantly is cycling, but it's kind of, I've always felt this, when I was a kid, I used to always draw spirals, in and then out. And apparently that's kind of how time and existence is. He was saying that there's, I don't know if it's hermetic or Gnostic, but they say there's no beginning and there's no end, which is kind of far out, right? There's no beginning to time and there's no end in time because it's everything in all places all at once, right? And so that's that spiraling in and spiraling back out. There's no finite point of this is where it begins and this is where it ends. And so it's constantly evolving. And from when you lift yourself out of that kind of third dimensional field where we're in right now, you get to have this perspective of the entire construct, as Darius Wright would say. The entire construct of the way that I would liken it is, those little snow globes. It's the third dimension is you're really in the globe and everything that's happening, right? It's that's your reality and that's all that is, and there's a drama to that. And then you can rise even to the top of the globe and look down and you go, okay, I have a little bit of a view of the land beneath. Coming out of the construct is actually holding the snow globe in your hand and going, oh wow, look at that reality in that snow globe. That in there, those people, those things think that's really real and that's all that is, right? But when you're holding the globe, you recognize, oh, that's like, it's a game. It's an experience, its own little world, right? So let me rein it in a little bit. What allows us to be here in the chaos is finding the still point, the eye of the storm, you could say, that resides in the seat of your soul. What if you were to go, I trust that my soul is guiding me? Like, what if actually everything was fated and destined and you don't need to worry about it? But where you do have free will and where you can change the course, you probably, your soul, if it's important enough, will redirect you again. But where you do have free will and choice is, how am I going to take this experience or this opportunity? How am I going to respond to it? Do I want to stay in this karmic loop of war and destruction and division and hatred and, what has essentially been the energy that has kind of taken over humanity and the planet for the last, let's call it 6,000 years? Or do I want to say, I don't want to play that game anymore? It's kind of like, I know I've used this silly analogy before, but it's like you've been playing a game on the Xbox. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to take that game out. I'm not going to play that game anymore. That is a choice. It might feel like we're stuck in this. It might feel like, God, all of these terrible things that continue to happen. How do we get out of it? We get out of it by seeing it for what it is and saying, I choose not to partake in it anymore. I choose not to support war, which means I'm not at war within myself. I'm not at war within my family. I'm not at war within my local and larger community and collective. I'm going to start to care a lot more about myself and about my community and about the human collective as a whole. It's just energy. It's just focus. So there's something for me that when I'm not going to lie, sometimes being human is like, it's fucking hard, right? It is. And we get pulled into the kind of quagmire of being human. And sometimes I get fucked off with it. It's like, what the hell is going on? And why is nothing changing? And I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to do that. And, the frustration can come in. But I also know that the moments where I sit back into the seat of my soul, and what helps me do that is meditation. What really helps me do that is going into nature. Like I spent 2 days taking myself and doing long hikes over the weekend and being in silence and just like hearing the birds and the wind in the trees and seeing the sea and all of that. It's like this recalibration and realignment that just reminds me of who I am and what all of this really truly is. I spent like a half an hour just looking at a cloud during sunset and watching it change color and shape and form, and like the metaphors and the analogies and the wonderment and the awe of like, life is so beautiful when you actually stay still enough to just observe it. When you get out of the noise and the distraction. And I was thinking about, I felt a little bit sad at one moment that I was like, wow, we live in a world that is so disconnected from nature, and there's so much wisdom in nature. There's so much wisdom if you just go stand in the forest and listen to the trees. We'd have so much more guidance, intuition, psychic abilities, connection, the feeling of safety, the feeling of comfort, the feeling of togetherness, the feeling of unity, if we just paid attention to nature and listened to her and connected with her and lived as a part of her. It's such an exquisite feeling when you put yourself in that environment and you recognize you are that. You are nature. She is you. And she's not I say she's not going to abandon you. I guess she could spit us off the planet if she wanted. But that wouldn't be the end either, because we're infinite, immortal souls. So, like, what if we didn't fear death? How would that change so much? How would we relax? How would we stop trying to control things and know that our higher self, it's got this. It's driving us in a good way, right? It's taking us to where we need to go. Our job is just to be the vehicle, the vessel, the conduit that will take our soul through this human experience. And to be open. Like I've said for the last 20 years in my morning grounding, like, may I be open to receiving that which my soul wants to experience through me today. It's a totally different perspective. And here's the thing, you're going to oscillate. You're going to go drop into the human. You're going to drop into this third dimensional realm, which is just like so loud and chaotic right now. And then you're going to remember and you're going to go back up. And I'm not saying up is better than down, right? They're two different experiences. But the point is to bring them into alignment and harmony. They're working together. If we really want to ascend, we have to take what we're learning here in this third dimensional realm and we have to alchemize it. And then we can ascend. But the remembrance of our soul, the remembrance, get to know, what does it feel like when I'm connected to my soul? For me, it feels very expansive and warm and that, like I can just exhale and relax, that I'm held, that I'm supported, that I'm guided. Inner knowing, intuition comes in, vision comes in. Get to know what it is for you personally. We're going to oscillate. We're going to come in and out. That's okay. Don't berate yourself from when you're like, oh man, I got really pulled into that human shit right now. I really got triggered. I was really reactive, or I really like went down the rabbit hole, or that's okay. That's okay. It's part of this experience. I think that's, a big part of moving through this is getting out of judgment. Get out of the self-blame for just your humanness. It's part of the car, part of the specs, There was a beautiful, as I was mentioning, this cloud that I was observing. And I'm going to just leave this as one of the final analogies. The bottom of the cloud and the horizon was really gray, really dark, almost black, looked like it could rain. But it was one of those big puffy white clouds. And at the top of the cloud, it was golden, like golden pink, because of the last rays of the sunset were hitting it. And I thought, isn't that a brilliant analogy? That the bottom part of the cloud, where it's all gray and kind of moody, and that represents kind of sometimes our human experience, most especially in this third dimensional field, where there's a lot of chaos and confusion and war and conflict and hatred and division. And it's like, we feel lost, we can't see, there's a darkness to it, right? And yet at the top of that same cloud, it's shining beautiful golden light. That's our soul. And it's always there shining, even when it feels dark and dreary and dismal down in the third realm. So it's like remembering up there, not that up there is better, but up there it's always shining. And the beautiful thing is that the soul is never going to abandon you. It can't. So even if you're in the realm that feels dark, it is pulling the light down into you. And actually it was so beautiful. And I don't even know how this happened, but you had the gray, then you kind of had white, and at the top it was golden. But at one point, because normally it kind of goes up, right? And you start to lose the color, you lose the gold, right? As you go up, as the sun goes down. But at one point in the darkness, in the dark gray layer, there was this section that almost looked like a portal and actually almost looked like a heart that had this like pink glow in it. So that to me was like a further part of this analogy of even in the darkness, the soul is pouring down light and creating this portal, this opening that if you drop into your heart, even when you're in the deepest, darkest place within yourself, or feeling like the world around you is so dark, there's always a portal to the light, to the divine. And it's not about escaping here, but it's about bringing heaven down into earth, bringing spirit and soul down into embodied form. This is what I'm saying. We're in harmony, we're in union, we're in relationship between human and soul. It's just like if you have a car, you take good care of it, right? So all of this is about a dance. It's a relationship. It's a union and communion between human self and soul self. Human self and soul self. They're no different. The human is just a physical incarnate expression of your soul. But the invitation is try to even just set the intention to think, if I were to look through the lens of my soul right now, how would I see life differently? How would it broaden my perspective? How could I relax into that so that I profoundly trust and have faith that I'm being guided? I don't need to control in the way that I've been shown or told that I should, because everything's scary and it's, fear-based and I'm going to die. And what if I profoundly trust that I am exactly where I'm meant to be right now? And what I heard in my meditation this morning was, just be happy where you are. Just be happy where you are. Like, I still want my home. I still have my stuff in storage for over a year now. There's many things that I'd like to call into my life, but it was just like, be happy for where you are right now. Because that's all that really exists. That's all that is right now. It's the infinite now. There's nothing else, right? So just some food for thought, food for soul. What happens if you were to relax into the seat of your soul more often? And how would you actually have a far greater sense of control, because you realize that you're being led, you're being guided, you're being driven exactly to the places that you're meant to be and go. So give it a go, give it a try. And as always, take it or leave it as feel right for you, and loving you from afar. Bye. If you enjoyed this podcast or the podcast in general, I would be so grateful if you could go and give a 5-star rating wherever you're watching, listening to this, and just to share it with people that maybe could do with it, that it would be supportive to them. My goal in doing these things is just to, even if I make one person feel less alone in their experience, then I'm truly, truly happy. And also, if you've been watching this and you feel like there's a topic or something that you'd love for me to speak to, please let me know. Write it in a comment, send me a DM. You can find me through my website, CorinneBloom.com, and I'd be happy to speak to those things. So if it moves you, if it feels genuine and authentic. Thank you. Loving you from afar. You've been listening to Raw Conversations with Corinne Bloom. Thanks so much for showing up, listening in, and being a part of the conversation with me.